Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Comms Business Live, where we'll be diving into what Microsoft's new CSP rules really mean for MSPs. Joining me today is Oliver Gardner, Head of Microsoft Alliances at Giacom. Welcome to the show, Ollie.
Nice to meet you. Great to be here.
Thanks for joining us today. So, just as an intro into this topic for anyone that might be unfamiliar, what changes has Microsoft made to its Cloud Solution Provider or CSP program?
Well, what is changing? That's a great question because it's quite seismic, actually. It's a major shift that will potentially reshape how many MSPs actually engage with Microsoft. So I suppose the biggest change that's happening, and probably the first one on everyone's lips who's in the channel currently, is so there's new revenue thresholds, and those revenue thresholds will affect both direct CSP partners and also distributors. So from a direct CSP partner perspective, they now must demonstrate $1 million in trailing 12-month revenue, which is up from the current threshold of $300,000. So sort of smaller and mid-sized MSPs who currently hold this direct relationship with Microsoft are falling below this $1 million threshold will be asked to transition to the indirect model where they work with authorized distributors such as Giacom. On top of the new revenue thresholds, though, direct partners must also pass annual operational and security assessments, hold at least one solution partner designation, and also maintain advanced or premier support plans with Microsoft.
So those changes clearly could really shake up the market. Those are very big number differences. So what would you say are kind of the biggest updates for partners?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. Undoubtedly, this change will shake up the channel. So the change is a strategic watershed, really, in Microsoft's CSP evolution. So it's going to intensify focus on scale, operational security, and partner capability. But the result of that is it may push many direct partners with smaller CSP revenue towards these distributor models, or forced to actually scale up and grow their revenue in a relatively short period of time. So direct partners who want to defend their position must prioritize support investment and security readiness, along with solution designations and ultimately revenue growth as well. So if I was one of those partners, I suppose what I would do is evaluate my current model. So if I'm direct currently, am I going to hit, or how close am I to this $1 million of trailing 12-month revenue, and decide whether I need to scale up or look at transitioning through to the indirect model via a distributor. And then if I'm an indirect partner at the moment, we also need to make sure that your current distributor meets their new requirements, as the revenue threshold for distributors has also increased up to 30 million. Pleased to say that Giacom hit this, so anyone working with Giacom or thinking of working with Giacom, there's no worries there. I would then say look at things like filling capability gaps. So if you haven't got one already, pursue a solution partner designation in areas like security, modern work, or infrastructure. And also look to boost operational maturity. So pass assessments, implement MFA, update security contacts. Things like that will all help you prepare for any transition that may occur in what you're doing. And then look at planning for budgets. So account for costs around the advanced partner support or premier partner support. You could almost look at consider consolidation or partnership through mergers and acquisition if you're pursuing that scaling up to hit these new requirements. Also leverage new business drivers. So promote the 3-year Microsoft 365 offers, which Microsoft have recently launched, and use partner center tools to drive things like upsells and seat adoption. And then most importantly, partner strategically. So if you're looking at making the switch to the indirect model, then align with a capable distributor who fits your requirements as a partner.
Absolutely. So it sounds like this is just kind of a natural time to evaluate where you are and see who's the best partner for you moving forwards, and really look like you're set up for growth in the long term.
100%.
And with any changes, some misconceptions can emerge in the market. So I just wondered kind of what misconceptions you might be encountering around this shift.
Yeah, I would say we've definitely engaged with a lot of direct partners. And there's definitely a lot of noise that those partners need to filter out at the moment.
Yeah.
So firstly, I suppose, contrary to some common fears, moving to the indirect model via a distributor is not a step down for partners. In actual fact, it often increases access to Microsoft resources, and that's especially for direct partners who are currently unmanaged as well. I would say there's probably 3 core points that MSPs will need to consider when comparing direct to indirect. And these are the things that partners really need to hone in on to separate what's actual fact and what's going to resonate with them. So incentive maximization. So the rates for direct bill partners and indirect resellers are the same, as is the access to Microsoft funding and programs. But transacting through distributors can actually help partners unlock and track things like Microsoft rebates and incentives with a lot more clarity and ease. They'll also benefit from any distributor-led promotions, incentives, and programs as well. So that's it, looking at incentives. Then secondly, I would say go-to-market support. So as a distributor, Giacom works collaboratively with Microsoft and our indirect partners to drive co-sell motions, unlock funding, and accelerate growth. So while direct co-sell access may change, distributors can actually facilitate introductions, support go-to-market planning, help partners position themselves for success in Microsoft's ecosystem. And then probably lastly, it would be roadmap and readiness. So direct partners often feel that by moving into the indirect model, they'll lose access to Microsoft roadmap updates. However, indirect partners often receive curated, digestible updates and enablement materials that are easy to act on than the sort of raw Microsoft comms you receive as a direct partner. So as an example, Giacom, we have a seat on Microsoft's Partner Council. So that gives us early insight into Microsoft updates, but also an opportunity for our partners to get their voices heard by raising issues and feedback directly into the program owners at Microsoft Corp.
It really sounds like the reality won't be as scary as some MSPs might be fearing. They're not losing anything. It's just kind of a shift and a kind of reset of that relationship.
100%. And I think, especially as I mentioned earlier, unmanaged direct partners at the moment will often find, in the feedback I'm getting from conversations and meetings and partners we've actually already transitioned from direct into indirect, is that actually they feel far closer to what's going on with Microsoft by having that support from a distributor.
Which is such a nice way to feel supported, and you're kind of getting it through kind of a different model.
Yeah, 100%.
So for any MSPs that are aware they might need to make a change as they kind of prepare for this rule change, what can they do to kind of ensure that transition is as smooth as possible?
So I'd say that from the conversations we've had and from speaking to partners and speaking at events, I think the common sticking points during this migration often broken down in sort of 3 points. Firstly is data migration. So moving customer tenants and subscriptions can be technically complex and definitely time consuming. But picking the right distributor and with the right planning, you can ensure that customer experience has minimal disruption, actually often gaining improved service and billing clarity on these points as well. Then I'd say secondly would be structured onboarding. So again, the right distributor will guide partners through every step, ensuring continuity across things like billing, provisioning and support. They'll also offer training and onboarding with go-to-market support to help those partners hit the ground running. And then lastly, and again, it's different sides of a business from these direct partners, which will have different stakeholders who put a different value on each of these points, but operational simplicity with strategic flexibility. So, for example, working with Giacom, our onboarding and automation tools make that transition seamless. So there's no disruption, there's no downtime, your systems and workflow stay intact, but you actually gain better support and efficiency. So if we break it down, then what makes the transition smoother? So it's an early engagement with, and I'll use this phrase, trusted distributor, clear internal project ownership and timelines, transparent communication with your customers to make sure they're aware of what's going on, and then testing and validating things like new billing and support processes before the migration. So if you do all of that, that should ensure that the transition from direct to indirect goes as smoothly as it possibly can.
Lovely. And before we wrap up, what kind of parting advice would you give to an MSP who's considering their options in light of these changes?
Well, firstly, and most importantly, it would be to identify the right distributor to work with and try and do that as early on as possible because all of them are slightly different. As a distributor over the past years in the channel, I've seen Microsoft push all indirect providers to really create their own value add. And that's great. So everyone has their own space within the channel. And then from a commercial or strategic point of view, I suppose here are some questions that if I was a direct partner, I'd be asking myself ahead of the change. So it would be, how can I use this transition to simplify things like operations, but also how can it help me scale faster? What new services or bundles can I offer then to my customers with the time and the resources that I free up, but also potentially with the additional services that you're getting from your distributor? Then it would be, well, how do I leverage the distributor's Microsoft relationship to gain that competitive edge? So how am I engaging with them and leveraging their Microsoft relationship to really help upskill and move ahead of my competitors? But it would be things like tools and automation. So what tools and automation does that distributor offer that's going to help me streamline my operational efficiencies? And then it's, how do I maintain visibility into Microsoft's programs and roadmaps? So working with that distributor, have I got all of the available Microsoft programs in front of me that's going to help me deliver value into my partners? Now, the right distributor will work with the partner collaboratively to ensure that these questions are answered, and they will identify the right one early on so they get that advantage. So rather than seeing this move, as I said earlier, as a downgrade, partners should actually view the shift as more of a chance to offload operational burdens, to streamline their operations, reduce overheads, and focus on that customer value and growth, which is so important. Now, as I said, we've worked with various partners who have made the move from direct to indirect. So we're more than happy to offer support and guidance to any partners who are looking at making that switch.
Absolutely. And like you've highlighted throughout this whole conversation, with any change comes opportunity. So it's just identifying areas you can grow, areas you can make a difference that's going to ultimately help you deliver better solutions for your customers.
100%, and that's what all partners are going to be focusing on is actually, how can I streamline, how can I become more agile, but the crux of all of that, how can I deliver a better service into my customers, and how can I attract more customers?
Absolutely. And so that does bring us to the end of this episode of Comms Business Live. Ollie, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thanks very much. Good to see you.
And as we've heard, Microsoft's new CSP rules are on the horizon, and every MSP can turn those changes into an advantage. If anyone watching wants to follow up with Ollie and the Giacom team, there are some links in the video description to guide you on your way. But otherwise, thanks everyone for joining us, and goodbye.